Iowa's News Now Sports has your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great.
Different Brookings in here?
Just a little bit, but a lot more people here.
Yeah.
Babe, wake up. It's Mark Gronowski Media Day. Welcome to a Friday edition of Eye on the Hawks, the second spring breakdown of not just a guy from South Dakota State meeting the media, but we're going to look at the Iowa running back and linebacker rooms as well. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here. Thanks to everybody watching live on YouTube on this April 11th. We're also going to take a trip to Madison at the end of the show for a reminder of just what the rivalries in college football really mean. But let's dive right in to Mark Gronowski. Owen pointed it out as one of the first guys to be asking him questions. You heard his voice there. Stood in the pocket for pushing 20 minutes, so to speak, and took questions. We'll give you a listen to 3.5 of Mark Gronowski talking about what he likes about Tim Lester's offense in Iowa City and a whole heck of a lot else, too.
Just his offense as a whole, like he has a lot of multiplicity to that offense, and you can do so many different things and run one play so many different ways, and it's a lot of fun, and it makes game planning a lot of fun as well.
Can you just kind of walk through, you entered the portal, also looked at the NFL, like just that whole decision-making process and kind of why you ended up here?
Yeah, that whole process, the transfer portal itself is a crazy deal. Definitely talked to a lot of different scouts about my opportunities in the NFL, and we kind of decided, and me and my parents, my agent, that it was going to be best to come back for another year. And after talking with Iowa and just the culture here, the coaches, having a Hall of Fame coach like Coach Ferentz, and also it being very similar to what I had at South Dakota State team-wise. Got a winning culture, and that's why I ended up choosing Iowa.
How many calls did you get when you got the portal?
Oh man, I think I had over 100 missed calls at one point, over 100 missed texts, and it was even crazier when our coaching staff in my last school left as well. So that made it all worse than just trying to help everyone out at my old school.
Did you give other schools any serious consideration besides Iowa?
Yeah, there was a couple schools here and there, and especially my old coaching staff leaving, talking with them a lot. But I thought Iowa ended up being the best fit.
What's your relationship like right now with the other guys in that quarterback room, Brendan or anybody else?
Really good right now, and it's been pretty cool just to have some connections with some guys, and with I mean, Brendan was at Northwestern before, and he was played under one of my old quarterback coaches as well. And you got Jimmy, who I had connections. His older quarterback in high school, I played with him. So just having a lot of those like weird small world relationships has been really, really cool, and I've been building really good rapport with all those guys.
For someone that hasn't seen you play, can you just give a little description of what you feel like or you can and want to bring to Iowa?
Yeah, I feel like my play style is very, very versatile. I mean, I can stay in the pocket. I can run the ball when I need to. When it's a third down, when you need to get a first down, I'll put my shoulder down when I have to, but slide just to protect the body when I need to as well. I know the coaches really like that. But it's just whatever the coaches need at that time, and in the moments that we need, I'll be there for that.
You said you're throwing a little?
Yeah, so I just started throwing a little bit, and it's going great. Feels great. Just continue to progress on that side of things, and then once it comes June, be 100% and ready to go.
Does it feel like it's ahead of schedule almost?
Yeah, definitely ahead of schedule right now. Body feels ahead of schedule. Just taking every day by day right now, and slowly progressing.
What's your mental rep load like right now? I mean, are you taking snaps and handing off but just not throwing, or are you? How does that work right now?
I'm kind of standing behind about 20 or 15 yards about, and really going through every single play, and trying to get every single rep that I can, because it's going to be so important when it comes fall, when it comes summer, to really get those reps and be ready to play fast when you get into the moment. But it's been really beneficial overall, and just going through all the footwork, going through all the handoffs, going through all the dropbacks, and even pointing to where I'm going to throw has been really helpful.
Mark, what do you remember about that game you played at Kinnick Stadium in 2022, that 7-3?
The greatest offensive game of all time, I call it. But no, that game was awesome. It was the loudest stadium I've ever played in. A lot of loud Kinnick, Iowa fans. It was a lot of fun. It was loud, and I couldn't even hear myself at the line of scrimmage. So I'm excited to be on the other side of it next fall.
First impressions of Mark Gronowski and all of his 18 and change minutes, and the 10 minutes we got to see him do dropbacks last week as well. If you can win a presser, I suppose, you Mark Gronowski did it yesterday.
Yeah, he even came in, and this reminded me of the Tim Lester first press conference we saw last year, where everybody was excited because he mentioned tight ends, big tight end guy. Gronowski had the same thing where he talked about like, oh man, I'm building good relationships with some of the tight ends in there. So yeah, he finds a way to win over the fan base. Very charming young guy, very winsome and easy to like, which has been the case with the last few quarterbacks that at least I've worked with since I've been in Iowa City and in this market. And the what do you want to say? The rubber hits the road when things do get tough. I mean, these guys are easy to like in the off season, easy to win over the press and the fans when you stand there and smile and look handsome as Mark Gronowski does. But when if you lose a couple games in the first 5 games of the year, then it's a little bit harder to stay in that pocket for 18 and a half minutes.
Been a lot of one press conferences in Iowa City over the past year, so wouldn't you agree? It just seems like that's a common.
Iowa City, you can win a tailgate, and you can win a press conference. That's how it works.
I a little more encouraged talking about how fast his recovery is going from yesterday. I thought he seemed like really personable and really, not to say that Cade wasn't, it just seems he seems down to earth, seems just like a genuine dude that, you could go have a beer with, that kind of dude. But I'm really excited about, once he can get into the, to actually practicing on June. And it seems like he's going to be right on schedule, which I don't think we knew that was the case in the past 2 years with Cade being injured going into spring. It's just like when we come into this, spring ball for the 3rd straight year, your starting quarterback is injured. And now it sounds like he's ahead of schedule instead of maybe it's August. So that's really encouraging too.
Yeah. Yeah, Cade's the perfect example of a guy that I think of where it's like, the first handful of press conferences we had with him. I mean, he too, really nice guy. I mean, and that is still the case. Cade's a really nice young man and always really liked working with him. But, those press conferences get a little bit more tough when the yardage isn't coming, the interceptions are stacking up, and the injury recovery isn't coming as fast as you want to. Then the frustration kind of sets in. So as you speak about the injury recovery for him, being able to already be throwing ahead of schedule, really positive sign for the Hawkeyes.
I think it's just a reminder, too, of the panic in January when the announcement about the surgery came out and the notion, because we don't see everything that happens within that building between January and June 1st. We get 20 minutes at one practice in April, and then you get the open scrimmage, and that's really it. And I think there was this thought of Mark Gronowski's in carbonite and sitting in Jabba's palace, so to speak, for you Star Wars fans, and he's not going to do anything for 4 months. We've seen him do a lot, all things considered. Cade was coming back from a knee both times in 23 and 24. Couldn't do that footwork that Mark's doing. And as Mike and I talked about it a couple times ago, nobody likes footwork better than Tim Lester. So he preaches that. And he's gotten to do those reps. Now he's ahead of schedule and gets to start throwing. It sounded like at the beginning, cautiously, he wasn't going to be throwing at any point. Now he is. I wouldn't be shocked if there was some soft toss at Kinnick on spring scrimmage. I think just for the B-roll. Love to have the B-roll.
Please. That B-roll.
I can see the kid run play action, but yeah, he handled himself as he's the guy that has the best resume in the history of any Iowa quarterback coming in. Chuck Long, all those guys. I mean, 2 natties, FCS
10,000 yards
of the year,
throwing,
10,000 yards, all this stuff, all the tutties, everything. And he's a mechanical engineering engineer. I think one of the first questions you asked is like, they said you're the smarter than the
smart guy, huh?
And now,
prove it.
And now he's finishing up his master's this spring already, and he's taken some leadership
what
classes.
A show off, right?
He sounded, yeah, boy. Some of us have a sports studies degree with the journalism.
A couple of us here, actually.
On paper he's impressive. In person he's impressive. We just need to see on the field. But again, we're talking about getting to see him on the field when we've seen him on the field. Knock on all the wood, but
yeah,
boy,
football,
it's great.
Football is one of those sports that, the injury concern is always going to be there. And with a guy that's been injured before, there's always a little bit of concern. And I'm saying I don't have any concern because, that first big hit he lands on his shoulder. Yeah. Is he going to come up, right? He actually, back in 2021, he did tear his ACL. Now he's played 2 seasons on that, so it's not like a repeat thing like we saw paid for different.
Excuse me.
I should have muted that.
Giving a heads up, sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't want to jinx it.
But he's been through that, and he's come back and he's played 2 seasons, so I don't think that's a concern. But there's always that injury concern, and when we get into fall camp and the first few games, I think once he gets hit, there'll be a lot of gasps in the stadium next year.
Something I didn't really consider until I started covering I won't even just say major college football. Any college football really is the importance of personality as a quarterback. It seems like there might not be any other position where just being personable, being a likable guy is so important as it is when you're the quarterback, because you do need to be a leader of men out there on the field and win the trust of the coaches. And the last several Hawkeye quarterbacks, in terms of personality-wise, have had that as well. I mean, Cade was a great guy. I really like Brendan Sullivan a lot, really good dude. Spencer, I didn't get to know Spencer super well, but it seems like everybody really spoke glowingly of what Spencer was off the field. And it seems like this guy has that too. Do you think that we're going to see the same thing as we saw with Cade, where he was a captain day one, basically coming in, that he was a captain for that first game? Are we going to see the same thing with Mark, you think?
That would be my assumption. I think your offensive captains are pretty much set. I mean, Logan Jones stepped in at the end of last year, so you've got him and Mark feel like your offensive captains.
Yeah.
The fact that Bryce Hawthorne's played with him in Brookings, first thing he said was, this is a guy that wants to go meet everybody. And, that's a little thing that goes a long way, and that's not just a football quarterback thing. That's just leadership, of being able to look everybody in the eye, shake their hand, get to know them a little bit, just having a conversation. That connection right away from a guy that's done everything, that has a full trophy case, so to speak, and could just come in and see this as like a one-year travel abroad study program, so to speak. He's making the effort, and it strikes me that's not just going through the motions with the guy. It's just the type of guy he is. He was invited. They have a big champions retreat out at Legacy Acres, Austin Blythe's property there in Iowa County, and he was there already in the first few months. So I think he's just a guy that, the quarterback is always the position everybody gravitates towards. It seems like he's the guy not waiting for people to enter his orbit, so to speak. He's making the effort, and I think that's what we saw from him yesterday, and it's what we've continued to hear about him from everyone that's talked with him, is that he's a leader, and then he backs up when he puts on the pad.
And he also said he's taking leadership classes in the fall, right? Did you say that? So boom.
He might be teaching him at some point.
Maybe he'll learn a few things and bring him onto the team,
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he wasn't the captain, right? It's just one of those things.
Yeah. I'd like to ask him sometime what makes a guy like him choose a mechanical engineering degree, just because, even coming into college, even if you're going to a South Dakota State, you still know you've got a pretty good chance of success and having a chance to make it to the next level if you do well there. So it's not like you have to find this, smarty pants degree, but it's you could have gone and majored in, what did you say, sports sciences or, communications? Sports studies, communication.
Health and sports studies.
Yeah, health and sports studies. That was, I don't know if it's a major. I think it changed after I graduated.
So at Iowa, not to get way off the topic, you had to have a double major if you were a journalism major, which is kind of a slight to J school.
Interesting.
That's another podcast. So that's what I went with. Probably should have done some business.
That's actually what I went with too.
Hey. Tyler Barnes and I had a bunch of classes together, a bunch of those guys I saw.
But I was just going to say, maybe it wasn't. He mentioned he only had one offer coming out, and it was FCS level.
That's true.
He went to,
Almost went to Western.
Almost went to Western, but he didn't get an offer in there. So maybe he was thinking long term, hey.
Football's not forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, he won't be alone in the backfield, certainly. We'll shift over to the running backs. Caleb Johnson, gone. 2 weeks from tonight. Could see him off the board at the NFL draft. It's an exciting time for him.
That's true.
Going into 2024, I think we all thought, hey, man, it'd be great to see Caleb finally have that breakout season we've been waiting for since 22. It happened. Kamari Moulton, Jazzy Patterson, they're in the room with a new head position coach in Omar Young. Got to talk to Kamari and Jazz a little bit, specifically more with Kamari about Coach Young, what they've seen so far. And Jazz, in a room where, he's been the 3, he's been the 4, he's been the 2, comes in as a 2, would be a guy that in this day and age would maybe jump in, try to look for a new opportunity. Really good conversation with him as well about what keeps him in Iowa City.
How's this spring different from last year, just your approach? I mean, you're RB1 right now.
It's really just trying to, grinding and just, even though, like you said, it's just, I don't even look at it like that. I just look at me as another year of just competing with my boys and just trying to get better as an all-around player.
How's Omar so far?
He's a good coach. I like Omar. He know what he's talking about, and we definitely learning a lot more new things, just different things. It's a different approach, so he coming in, like I said, with a different approach. So just learning new things. I enjoy it.
What's the difference between him and Liddell?
One thing we really emphasize is just blocking. That's one main thing we emphasize, just trying to get better at, and just technical. He very technical with things, and so it's just learning new stuff. But I feel like he's a great coach. They both are great coaches.
What was final conversations with Liddell, learning he was going to leave and all that? 'Cause, I mean, 4 years, he did a lot here.
Okay, it was a great conversation. He called our peoples and stuff, and everybody know, and like let us know like it's not us, you know. He just sometimes it's just a business decision. You got to do what you got to do sometimes. So we understood. I mean, Coach Best came back too for practice, and we got to talk to him for breakfast. So all is well with Coach.
A lot of guys this day and age look portal, think NIL. What has been your process there, or your thought process with you and Kamari? Maybe you guys have talked about it. Just kind of how do you approach that?
Well, like portal talk?
Yeah, just like a lot of guys, if they don't get they're not the starter, they jump. You know, what kind of keeps you rolling here?
I always keep my head down. I always know, like, with God, like, my opportunity coming. Like, we've been working hard. We all been working hard, so each one of us going to get our opportunity. Like, that's destiny. And I always, like, knew that it would happen. It would come one day. As long as I kept my head down and kept working. Like, you can't never give up on yourself or think it's something, like, better out there. Like, I always been loyal to this program ever since I came here, and that's the way it's going to stay. Like, I don't got to go nowhere, you know? So I always been confident and, like, knowing that my opportunity going to come.
He's waiting for that opportunity. So is Kamari. Was RB1 for the opener last year, but of course KJ stepped in and did his thing. But boy, the bowl game really showed that all is going to be well in the Iowa backfield. Of course, you lose Mason Richmond and Connor Colby on the offensive line, but Kamari 14 for 96. He had 38 there on that big run. Oh, and then I split up the shots there because the ref got in the way of my his first down
celebration.
Yeah, point for me. And Jazz had 9 for 74 in that game, along with 21. Great seasons for both these guys when they got their opportunities. Kamari had, I think, 4 runs of at least 29 yards, had the 68-yarder against Maryland in a big one. This feels like a group that there are guys back there. Terrell Washington, who had the receiving touchdown in the bowl game off the sweep. There's talent in that room, man, and you got a new coach that's going to play a role certainly, and some new guys in the offensive line that have played a little bit. But what are our thoughts on what that running back room is going to be post KJ?
I like those guys a lot. I mean, I think that there was a lot of opportunity for them to get more yardage, more touchdowns last year if Caleb Johnson hadn't been having one of the best running back seasons in Iowa history. Both Kamari and Jazz, it seems like every time they stepped on the field, looked impressive. Kamari, just a little bit of their numbers. Kamari had 482 yards on the year. Jazz had 312. Kamari had 3 touchdowns. Jazz had 2. In a normal season where Caleb wasn't going bonkers, then they probably would have had at least a few more in there. But I think that it says a lot, too, that there was never even a sniff of, like, Iowa going after, like, a running back in the portal or anything. It's not like they needed a more experienced guy in there. I think the coaching staff is really comfortable with what they have in these two.
Yeah, I think they're comfortable with the redshirt freshmen coming in, not coming in, but that are coming back this year with Xavier Williams and Brevin Dahl. I don't know if I assume they'll get kind of like TJ Washington carries, amount this year, maybe 10, 12 there. But I see it more of it as a committee. The big problem is, like, KJ was the entire offense last year, right? Yeah. Like, the talent is there, but it's not like that talent, at least yet. They have to develop if they want to. And those kind of running backs, when you look at them throughout Iowa history too, like we were comparing him to Sean Graham so much last year. It took like 15 years to get to a running back with that talent. Yeah. So it's not saying that these guys aren't talented. They are. But it's going to have to be more of a, committee workload thing. And I think Kamari is a great running back. And I think Jazz, at times, like in the past 2 years, has shown he's explosive and he can make plays. And I'm excited to see him get a lot more carries this year.
Nathan McNeil, early enrollee in the running back room as well, out of Tampa. He's number 25 on the roster there, 5'11", 195. I think we saw a little bit of him last Thursday. This does feel like the opportunity, and we talked about this last spring, of setting the goal or the prediction that Iowa would have a 2,000-yard rushing attack last year, which they did. We thought maybe it would be a little more evenly distributed before Caleb did Caleb things. This feels like you've got an Akram Wadley, LaShawn Daniels scenario again, where you've got your thunder and lightning, and you've got a couple guys that can maybe go for 800 piece, 1,000 piece maybe. That'd be pretty spectacular to have. And then you've got a running quarterback, whether it's just Mark or if Brendan sticks around and he's an element and throwing things around. You've just got a lot of stuff to do with another year in this motion offense. There's, again, opportunity. We kept talking about that last year too. It just seems like there's a lot of meat on the bone still offensively across the board. I know we talk a lot about the passing attack, but expanding the running game to more than just here's Caleb doing big things. There's, I think, a chance to flourish for a lot of guys in 25.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of think maybe the rushing yards as a whole, obviously they're going to go down, but I wouldn't
Will
be.
They?
For an individual?
Yeah,
I guess from this running back room, because I think Mark Gronowski, he's run for almost 1,700 yards in his career, and he's rushed like 300 to 500 to 600 yards a season. Mm-hmm. I think that will be added, and it obviously will take away carries for the running back. And also, if Iowa wants to contend for a conference championship this year, I think the passing game has to, take that step. Sure. And if that happens, there's going to be less ground game. That's just, you don't have enough plays to get the ball to everyone, as much as they did to KJ last year.
Yeah, that will be an interesting race to watch. Last year, the team combined for 2,564 yards. It doesn't seem impossible that as a team they could get to that point. They might not have a single 1,000-yard rusher, but between Kamari and Jazz, and you throw in some yardage from maybe Brevin Dahl starts getting some carries, maybe TJ starts getting some significant carries. Those guys are up to 300 or 400 yards. Maybe Mark, maybe Brendan are both at 200 to 300 yards. Like just across the board, they could reach that cumulative total that they had last year.
I think Iowa's focus is going to be, though, breaking 2,000 passing yards in the regular season for the first time since 2021. They just got over that mark in the bowl game after 22, thanks to Joey Labus throwing screen passes and whatnot to Luke Lachey. But been 3 seasons now since Iowa had 2,000 passing yards through 12 games. We'll see if Mark Gronowski or whoever may be ended up back there. We've seen what can happen to a quarterback room the last couple of years. We'll see if that can change in 25. A lot of talk on the linebacking side. No Jay Higgins, no Nick Jackson, no Kyler Fisher. That is a lot of experience heading out the door, and a lot of guys that are going to get opportunities on Sundays, you'd like to think, here over the next month or so. The cupboard is not bare. Far from it. Heck, you got a redshirt freshman linebacker out of Monticello squatting 630, folks. Preston Reese is in the mix here, maybe getting some PT in 25. But there are 3 new starters there in the linebacking core. They are certainly not new faces to Hawkeye football. We got to hear, not from Carson Shire, who's probably busy hitting guys on kickoff. That's his thing. But we got to hear from Jaden Harrell, pride of Urbandale, and Xavier alum Jackson Rexroth as they step into LB1 spots here.
1 reps are great, but I mean, you've had plenty of playing time. Jackson's had plenty of play time. Carson, I mean, this whole new linebacking core, that has to lend itself to just confidence coming in, even if it's a different role. It's not your first time on the field by far.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a it's definitely not an age thing. I mean, being the 5th year here there's confidence is definitely there. So that's, like you said, that's a good part. So confidence is definitely there. It's just going out there and executing.
Is it easier, though, to be patient when you see that formula work for Jay and work for some of the other guys we've seen in this program?
Yeah, of course. And even looking at the wall up here of the All-Americans, you see guys that only got 1 shot, whether it's a D lineman or a corner, they only had 1 shot. They had 1 year, and they proved themselves. And then just watching Jay, me and Jay are pretty close as well. He still reaches out, checks in. I'll check in on him, congratulate him on the combine and all that stuff. So I get a bouncing idea off of him, and he tells me how he went through the process. So it's very nice to have that.
You had plenty of playing time, special teams, as you step into 1 role, but you had that knock against Nebraska in 23. How much a play like that as you're finding your footing on special teams gave you confidence going into last year and now this year? Have a big play like that.
Yeah, no, that definitely is big. That helps a lot. It allows you to know that you can make plays out on that field because I was in that role, but there was never really a moment, a big chance to make something like that. I think that just gives me confidence, and it allowed me to be really more comfortable on the field last year during the whole season. So
there's a lot made out of, Jay's not here, Nick's not here, Kyler's not here, but the amount of experience that you and Jaden and Carson and a lot of these guys have, I imagine that builds confidence too coming into it. New roles, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, we've all been on the field for special teams for, at least me, Jaden, and Carson have been on the field for 3 years on special teams, which that helps a lot. And then also learning behind those guys, though, like we've played behind them for 2 years with Nick. They really teach you a lot, and they were really good teammates about it. They would always let us know what they were doing, what they were thinking, just so we can think in the same way.
Here's the fun part if you're watching on YouTube right now. Here's a bunch of stuff that we've shot. Like, this is from last week at that open practice, but we've been getting video of these guys for years. We just haven't always made the YouTube channel or the sportscast because a Jaden Harrell fourth quarter tackle or him running drills at spring drills, that just goes in the archives until we feel like we need it. I forgot I had that shot. Jackson Rexroth got a jersey tore up at spring last year, but Rexroth has played 37 games already as a Hawkeye on special teams. And again, you'll see the forced fumble against Nebraska that Shire recovered here in a little bit. Jaden Harrell's played 21 games. Shire's played 31. And he had the fumble recovery there in Lincoln as well. Jay Higgins, just for comparison, had played in 31 games before he got his starting nod, goes out and makes 17 tackles in the opener against Utah State in 23 and we go, who's this kid out of Indianapolis? This feels like a group, even though they're maybe the most under the microscope in terms of like how do you replace all that production, this is a group that played a lot of football. I'm bullish on this group. I think they could be a big bright spot. You got Seth Wallace coaching them up. This is a group that's maybe not plug and play. There might be some bumps, but that's going to be a fun linebacking group, especially with those redshirt guys like Reese and Weisskopf and Buffington. You know, we're itching to see what they do, and they're going to get special team ops this time.
Yeah. Another guy that we had a chance to talk to yesterday, or I don't know, I might have been the only guy that talked to him, was Landon Van Kikerix.
He was there?
Yeah, he was there kind of standing over to the side, right? I think he might have been talking to Kamari or Jazz or something when he was in there, but not a lot of media around him. I only recognize him because I covered him when he was in high school up in Northwest Iowa, Boyden Hole Rock Valley. But a kid who came in, maybe not a ton of fanfare, incredible basketball player. He got a little play at the state tournament maybe his senior year because he threw down a couple of vicious dunks leading Rock Valley, I think, to the championship maybe as a senior. But another kid who's a good athlete. It surprised me to see him out there, and it made me think, like, maybe this is the other third guy who's going to be getting a lot of reps out there at linebacker. Like, maybe Van Kikerix, it's finally his time to step in. He played in 8 games last year, again, mostly, if not all, on special teams. So he's got a few years of eligibility left. He's a guy who, I don't know, maybe he's the next one stepping in this year as we talk about some of these younger guys that we haven't seen a lot of yet.
I feel like he had a good hit in the bowl game, too, and he's a guy that when you talk to players, he's a name that they'll bring up as well. I don't know how you feel about the linebacking room.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you're encouraged about it. I think this is clearly Iowa's biggest question mark in the season. You know, a lot of the players, like you mentioned, Rexroth and Harrell have been in the program, but I mean, returning tackles from next year, they had 33 combined tackles on the linebacking core. And, you know, you just look at Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins, and they each had over 100. So, I mean, they obviously can tackle, but it's just how big will that drop-off be? Because those two players were excellent, right? And who ends up actually on that starting lineup? Will they be playing mostly a cash, or will they be playing the third linebacker more? I mean, I'm assuming they'll play mostly cash just because that's how the way football is played now with the nickel. But I obviously hope that they step in and do the Jack Campbell to Jay Higgins, like where there's no kind of drop off. There was a little bit, but you know, Jay's still excellent. But you can take it on the flip side. It's like that luck has to run out sometime, right? You can't just keep plugging in linebacker.
It's a hot hand fallacy that I think the same thing is going to keep happening over and over. But
what's encouraging though is you have a lot of
linebackers been locked in at Iowa for a pretty long time. I mean, something's working there. It's different guys, but there's a through line somehow.
I think you'd admit though that last two middle linebackers have been
otherworldly, yeah.
Were otherworldly than in the 2017, 2018 seasons.
The middle linebacker in 2017 was Josie Jewell.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, but
it's just Iowa's been cranking out some really good linebackers, certainly, and even a guy like Nick Neiman, who's still hanging around the NFL. I mean, they've had. I'm just confident in what the machine has continued to build.
But I mean, Josie also didn't he start as a freshman? It's just different, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's getting to be a little bit like the tight end room, where you just expect, okay, if they're playing, the expectation level of Iowa tight ends is up. So if these are the next guys and they've got pushing 80 games of experience already on special teams and a little bit running in the defense, like I can't help but feel like it's going to be okay.
Carson Shire is an interesting story. I'm looking forward to just investigating a little bit more this year, just because he's a guy who's been an Iowa Falls native, coming out of Ellsworth country. He comes to Iowa, and he's been on the roster. He's played games for the last 4 years, and he still has his final year of eligibility left, and here he is, and maybe he's going to be getting that starting spot. As much as it is fun for Hawkeye fans to follow the stories of players, football or any other sport, when they're a guy who starts and plays a lot for 2, 3, sometimes even 4 years, like those are really fun stories to tell when you've seen these guys all 4 seasons, kind of seen their whole journey play out. These single-year Hawkeyes that, Hawkeye history is littered with one-year players who made the most of their one season on the team, or one season of significance, at least when you look at like a Brad Banks or a Sean Green or a Lucy Olson, even who, really only has 1 year in the spotlight, and they still kind of make their place in Hawkeye lore.
Yeah, it's an exciting group. And then you've got guys who have also been around for a while. Jaden Montgomery, I know, has been in that room for a few years and is going to keep getting special teams reps, and maybe he can help on the defensive side as well. There's a few guys like that. Speaking of, go ahead.
Oh, how much, I was just going to ask you guys a question. How much playing time do you think remember those 3 linebackers that all came in last year? Like, do you think they get into the action? I'm not, obviously I hope the linebackers are going to be good.
Special teams guys.
Yeah.
I think that's, get them their reps there and have LeVar coach them up, and, hey, we just ran 30 seconds of Carson Shire video, and he's taken minimal defensive reps, but he knocks guys on kickoffs. So it's an opportunity to show your worth and build up. And, those guys that have been holding it down on special teams for these last few years now elevate, so these guys get to go in. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if one of those 3 Eastern Iowa linebackers announced their presence with authority at one time or another in 25.
I wouldn't be surprised to see at least 2 of them get a lot of reps this year. Like, I think that both Reese and Weisskopf are in a place where, like, they'll, probably not start a game this year, but I think that we'll see a lot of them.
The encouraging thing about the linebacking core, when you look at it, and the D-line and the secondary have a lot more game experience in their positions on defense, is they're not young guys, right? So they've got a lot of practice and they've got a lot of experience in the program. So I think that's one beneficial thing. I guess I'm a little concerned, and I hope
burned before.
Yeah, I just a little concerned going in. It's like, because you don't know what you have. Last year you had Nick Jackson, and I don't want to trash.
2 years ago you didn't know you had.
Exactly. Yep. Good point.
It's fun. That's
Well, we were bringing Nick Jackson too,
we were
who was
he was established,
who he was, yeah.
And like, hey, okay, Jay Higgins is going to plug in there, and then after that Utah State game, it was like, I had 17 tackles. It was 90 degrees out there. Like, it just,
I also think
you don't know until they get on the field.
In general, sports fans take for granted how hard it is to get to that level and be like, oh, well, we just got this guy we're going to plug in too who's been in the program, and it's just going to be the same. And maybe it is, and I'm hoping it is, because that means Iowa's defense will be that much better. But we won't know until August and September.
Yeah. Well, we're going to look ahead to October 11th, 6 months from today. Iowa's going to head to Madison to defend the Heartland Trophy against Wisconsin. Classic Big Ten West rivalry that had a score, I think we can all admit, last year. Not what you think of when you think of Iowa, Wisconsin. 42-10's a little out there. We like those 15-6 games, those 10-6 games.
We like them?
We have them.
in a very sadistic way. Some of us just put them in the veins. Daryl Peterson's a guy who's played a lot of football up in Wisconsin. 40 games, started 21 at linebacker for the Badgers. He says Wisconsin's been using that loss in Iowa City and giving up 42 as motivation during practice. They're doing 42 push-ups after every practice to remind themselves. As the old meme from a newscast that's on the internet nowadays, I'll paraphrase. I was with you in the first half, I'm not going to lie. Courtesy of Donnie Slusher in his video on Twitter, here's Daryl Peterson.
Remind, especially when things get tough and when things aren't going our way, I think that's been a big thing too, especially like a guy like Wiz always reminding me, like, just think about those 42 points, or even Coach Fick is big, like, think about that. We can't help but think about it when we're doing stuff after practice and doing things in the weight room to kind of keep reminders. So I think the staff has done a great job too, reminding us and just keeping us cognizant of those things.
Is it Iowa game the one that sticks out the most, or is Nebraska or
yeah,
Minnesota?
Because when have you ever heard Iowa score 42 points ever? Like, ever. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, yeah, like that one, obviously all 3 of them, but 42 points is unacceptable to anybody, but especially those guys. So I think just from that aspect, yeah. So, but yeah, I see.
I've heard of Iowa scoring 42 points ever. It was against your team, sir, and you just mentioned it. this is why college football is awesome, because the rivalry never ends and you're thinking about it all the time. But man, you set it up of, hey, like we're using this as motivation, 42 push-ups after every game. Oh, by the way, Iowa offense sucks. Oh, man.
Is Michigan jacked up right now?
No, like, how loud was Luke Fickell yelling at a fifth-year guy for going in front of the media and saying that? Like, man, like you've played a lot of football. You had a fumble recovery against Iowa in 22. This is a damn good player. Why would you say that? Why, man?
It's going to be played on a loop.
That's
in
all
the
it
locker
is.
Room, that week.
And you gave up the points, man.
He still could have said half of that and been okay, I think.
First half was awesome.
Yeah, like
hell yeah,
they scored 42 against us, and we want, that's why we're really motivated. But like the part, which by the way, Iowa scored 40 points in a game four times last year. Like, yes, traditionally in the last few years, like you don't hear about Iowa scoring 40 points very much. But
This is a new segment on the
third of their games.
New segment on the podcast called "Look Up Receipts as Quickly as You Can."
This is also, though, you said it right, Mitch. One of the reasons I love college football, these rivalries, like someone on the East Coast, West Coast, they're not going to care about Wisconsin, Iowa, but like just this was one of the headlines in college football. If you went on social media and you just looked around, like, I can't believe this Wisconsin linebacker said this about the Iowa game. This is kind of crazy, though. I'm going to went on Winsipedia to look to see when the last time there was 40 points scored in an Iowa-Wisconsin game.
I was just looking at the same thing, actually.
Oh, so you have it?
So the last time 40 was scored in that game in general, it was by Wisconsin in 1999. The last time, I was going to say the last time Iowa scored 40 in that game was in 1975, 45-28. They beat Wisconsin.
Yeah, 42-10 is.
But three times in, almost 45 years or so, whatever it is. That's insane.
I think Wisconsin in 17, the game where Josh Jackson did all the scoring for Iowa after the Ohio State upset, I think that was like a 38-17.
Yeah, they almost got there.
It's been close.
Yeah.
And there have been games where there's been, both teams are in the 20s and points are scored, but yeah, you picture 2015 forcing the fumble on the goal line and one touchdown by Iowa wins the thing. That bullies the Big Ten game that really sparked that Rose Bowl team in 15. And then you think of let's get a safety in Madison, and LaShawn breaks off an 85-yard run that's 10% of his yardage for 23, and we'll just get out of here with a 15-6 win. That's your typical Iowa-Wisconsin thought.
Mitch's ability to remember exact scores of games does impress me.
I watch a lot of highlights.
He just ripped off 15-6, and I was at that game, and I would not have been able to tell you it was 15-6.
I was looking at some stats too on this Daryl Peterson.
He's a good player.
Was he injured for Iowa game? Because he had 0. He was the only game last year.
He played, didn't have
a tackle.
Yeah.
Only game of last season, and I know I was looking through some box scores, and he started some, didn't start other games.
He started 21 games over his career.
Yeah.
He's played a lot. That's why it's
was this a time? Boy,
I hope he has a great season. He seems like a really solid player. And hey, if I'm the media in Madison, love talking to that dude.
Yeah.
And you just
might not talk to him in a while.
There is a lot of receipt keeping going on for next year's trophy games between this clip, between Curtis Fader's clip of the no handshakes against Nebraska. Yeah. You know that is going to be coming around a lot.
I honestly forgot about that whole fiasco. That was like the biggest thing on Twitter for like the 38 hours after the game.
Wild. I did ask Jay after Pro Day. He was talking with a bunch of us. I was like, "Did you ever hear from Rule? Did he ever contact?" And it sounds like he has never heard directly from Matt Rule, Nebraska's head coach, about the handshake thing. He thought Rule has at some point reached out to Wallace, but I don't know what was said about that. But that was, that was capital A, capital T, a thing for a little while. That was wild. You can't imagine. That's in 26 when the rivalry comes back. Both these come back to Kinnick?
This might be
get up on the big board.
A really sportsy podcast topic to move to, but does that make Iowa, Wisconsin like the highlighted game of the year for the season?
It heats it up a bit. It's going to be an interesting game. You got Billy Edwards there now as quarterback moving in from Maryland.
I guess right now, what game are you most looking forward to? I mean, obviously, it will change.
That cranks it up, yeah. It's a big year for
Penn State, host Oregon.
Yeah. It's a big year for Fickell, too. Anytime you go to Madison, I think that's a fun one. But, yeah, you got a couple big home games, too. But this, as of April 11th, you're 6 months to the day away from it. I think a lot of people are excited to get up to Madison.
It's interesting with that one too, because I feel like in the last couple of years we've maybe even talked about this on the podcast, where the Iowa-Wisconsin rivalry is one that, like, I mean, I'm not a Hawkeye fan, so it's like it's not like I get super invested in the rivalries, but I do still love when they beat Nebraska, and I do still love when they beat Minnesota. Wisconsin is a rivalry where there's just like a lot of mutual respect. It's maybe not the most like heated rivalries. If you're going to pick the 4 trophy games, a lot of maybe players would say that like that's not the one that they want to win the most. But this kind of commentary does maybe boost that a little bit more, where this is maybe the game that, especially if you're a player, you're going to want a little bit more this year.
I think there was such a through line for decades because of Barry Alvarez, because of Brett Bielema being up there, and now there's not so much Iowa ties up there anymore. You got a couple guys that played football at Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Mike Tressel, the DC, and Matt Mitchell, the linebackers coach. They're there, but you don't have guys that Kirk is known for decades up there anymore. So I think that I'm sure there's always respect for Wisconsin because it's Wisconsin and they play damn good football up there. But I think things like that and flipping the script in a new age Big Ten, you know, the rivalry heats up a little bit more. There's always respect, but the rivalry can get a little more fiery.
I'll say as a lifelong Hawkeye fan, the trophy game that I want to win the most is whoever they're playing that week, for one, but 2, like I would say Wisconsin. Growing up from 2000 to 2008, I just hated Wisconsin, and but in both basketball and football. So those are I guess it depends on where you come in the state, or where you live in the state. If you live near the Minnesota border, I think that's year one. If you live in the west side, it's probably Nebraska. Yeah. Although Nebraska's really kind of touching nerve with a lot of fans recently, myself included. Just, I think it's a great rivalry though, and Iowa State if you live in Central Iowa. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you did not say Iowa State. I thought that would be the one that would be.
Yeah, it was more of like their little brother kind of thing, kind of get under their skin because it's really easy to get under Cyclone fan skin. But no, just something about Wisconsin that they were actually like. Iowa State's a good program now, but back then they kind of weren't. So it was like they're competing for Big Ten titles, on certain years. We're competing on Big Ten titles on certain years. So it just felt a little bigger.
It is. Were we just talking like last week or the last couple of weeks of just how quickly Iowa, Nebraska, when they game in the Big Ten, that was a rivalry immediately. And I don't know if there were feelings from the fan base on the Iowa side before of like, well, we'll root for Iowa State to beat Nebraska, or if there was any feeling like that. But that felt just immediate. Like, we don't like Nebraska now. We hate Nebraska. And I don't know what the catalyst was for that, aside from they're a border rival, and we don't like folks on the other side there.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is that it's probably a little bit of jealousy, just like the Iowa fans wanted the success that Nebraska was having for all those years in the 80s and 90s that they saw just across the border. These guys are winning national championships, and it's like, boy, it'd be fun to have that. They're right here in the Midwest. Why can't we have that same kind of success? And there were a handful of matchups over the years. It's not like there's no history between them. In 1980, Nebraska beat Iowa 57-0. Next year, I think that was the 81 game was a landmark win for Hayden Fry when Nebraska was number 7 and Iowa beat him 10-7. But next couple times they played in 82, 42-7, 99, 42-7 loss, 2000, 42-13 they lost under Ferentz. I mean, there is a history there, and it's a history of Nebraska beating up on Iowa by and large. And so I think that once they became conference rivals, Iowa fans were ready to finally get their turn.
Yeah, in the past recent years, it's been widely Iowa on that side. One thing I'm looking forward to before we wrap up on the podcast today is in August when we do our schedule talk, there is a meaty part of the schedule, and I don't know why I haven't noticed it because I've looked at the schedule a ton, but you're hosting Indiana, who made the playoff, off week, at Wisconsin. That game seems a little bigger now. Host Penn State, host Minnesota, off week, host Oregon at USC, and then host Michigan State at Nebraska. That's the entire.
You're going to learn a lot real quick.
Outside of Rutgers, but those are tough games.
Yeah, very tough. And that's, the first time in quite some time that they've hosted 3 straight Big Ten games? Wasn't that the stat, or not the stat, but the fact that came out in the schedule? Something like 30, 40 years.
Really?
That they've been that long. Now, granted, you've got some different Big Ten teams in there and more opportunities to host Big Ten games, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of, keep coming back to the word opportunity. If you're Iowa in a season where there's a little, hey, if things click, this could be really good. If they don't,
It could be, yeah. If they don't click,
It could be a non-bowl win season, non-bowl game season, honestly.
it all depends too. Like depends on how Nebraska and Wisconsin actually turn out next year. But if they're good teams, and Michigan State and with Aiden Childs takes another step, like and USC, they were so last year.
Indiana, I don't know how they're going to come off.
Are they going to be good again? Like, there's a lot of question marks. It could turn out
It's
to
April.
be.
It's April 11th.
Yeah, I know, right? It could turn out to be like a decent schedule, but it could be a very tough one where Iowa, is struggling to make a bowl game, which is right now a lot of uncertainty. And I don't think that's going to happen, but the schedule's kind of tough compared to past seasons, though.
Not going to solve the world's problems today, and certainly not going to figure out who wins and loses games in September, October, and November. But we do our darndest here on Eye on the Hawks. Next week will be our final position-by-position breakdown. Only guys we haven't talked to are tight ends, wide receivers, and the O-line. So we'll get to sink our teeth into those guys and talk to them for the first time in 2025 next Thursday. So watch the YouTube channel where you're watching right now. If you're joining us on Friday, that's where we'll have the extended interviews and conversations up on Thursday afternoon by then. And of course, you can follow us at Eye on the Hawks on Twitter. And Mike's real good about getting those reels out or whatever they're called on Instagram and YouTube Shorts. That's where people like
Instagram
watch.
Reels, YouTube Shorts.
Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. People watch like full AMC series now on YouTube Shorts, 60 seconds at a time. I think that's the way people consume things now.
That's wild.
Been watching a lot of Mad Men reruns on 60-second clips.
Kids these days.
That's what the kids are doing, I suppose. So we'll talk to those guys, and then remember we've got coordinators coming up 12 days now. It'll be the Wednesday before the spring scrimmage, and then we'll look ahead to that coming up on the 26th. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Enjoy the weather. For Mike and Owen, I'm Mitch. See you next time on Eye on the Hawks.